Hey guys, it's Ro from Gratitude, and I'm excited to put this video together. In a moment from now, we're going to use the wonders of technology to take us over to the dry erase board. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to give you guys a little bit of an appetizer, if you will, on this idea that we call the narrative. Now, the narrative are, a narrative, I should say, are words, phrases, quotes, stories, and such that help the student to directly correlate what they're doing on the yoga mat and how what they're doing on the yoga mat will positively affect their feelings, their thoughts, and their actions off the yoga mat. Now, this is an important distinction, so you might want to jot this down. A narrative uses phrases, words, quotes, stories to help the student directly correlate what they're doing on the yoga mat, what they're going through, how they're doing what they're doing on the yoga mat, and the improvement of the quality of their life, their feelings, their thoughts, and their actions off the yoga mat. Now, you'll see in a few moments when I take you over to the dry erase board how we do that. But I want to give you a little bit of an appetizer here, a little bit of an overview. The narrative piece is, as one teacher put it, it's a constant sale. You're constantly selling people on investing their energy. Now you think about, or paying attention to what they're doing. I mean, think about why we say pay attention. And we say pay attention because your attention is the currency of life. It's the capital of life. So when you're paying attention on the yoga mat, you're actually investing your energy in something that is going to pay off. Now, if someone doesn't see the value in anything, you go to buy a new car and the car is X amount of money, you don't see the value in it, you're not going to buy it. If you don't see the value in coming back to the yoga class, if you don't see the value in keeping your arms up in chair pose, you're not going to do it. You're not going to pay for it. You're not going to do what's necessary. So it's my hopes in this video that I inspire you and I help you guys to distill and to refine this narrative and move away from all the stuff that doesn't really matter. Like the fluffy stories about, teddy bears and unicorns and, the love and this and that, because it's just, it falls on deaf ears. People are sophisticated. They realize that life is a battle for territory. And what they need is a practice that's going to help them mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and of course, physically. And that's one of the things that we do at Gratitude. We provide that for the student base. So without further ado, let's get over to the office, my home office, and the dry erase board.
Hey, thanks for taking the time to watch this video. What I want to do in this video is bring more clarity around the importance, the significance of what we call the narrative. Now, there's a difference between narrating one of the classes at Gratitude and just saying things. Oftentimes, newer teachers and even sometimes experienced teachers fall into the trap of asking themselves a question like, what am I going to say? What am I going to say today in class? And oftentimes what that does is it creates a lot of stress and anxiety within the teacher to have to produce something. And oftentimes when that happens, we say things, and I'm not pointing the fingers, I've certainly been there before too. You start to say things that are inauthentic and just don't make sense and kind of screw everything up. So it's my hopes in this video to bring some clarity to your ability to distill and to refine this process we call narrating a real powerful yoga class, or the Gratitude way. So a narrative, by definition, is a spoken or written account of connected events, essentially a story. So we're going to talk a little bit more about a spoken account of connected events before we talk about the idea of a story. Because I think a big part of narrating a class is also learning how to tell a story. But let's first talk about the spoken account of connected events, and this is an important distinction. The way that gratitude views a narrative is that we want to make the connection between what the student is doing on the yoga mat, and we want to tell a story. We want to tell them that what they're doing, what they're experiencing, the strength that they're gaining from what they're doing, at each one of those 6 phases, we're trying to make the case that how they do what they're doing on the yoga mat and what they do is going to correlate directly to what they're doing off of the yoga mat, or a count of connected events. The events are connected. There's an old saying, how you do anything is how you do everything. And a big part of being on the yoga mat is doing some self-reflection. Because when you are posed with a challenge, and we use the easy example of chair pose, and you raise your arms up, whether the challenge is physically, mental, or emotional, or even a spiritual challenge, when you're in chair pose, and you probably can experience this or attest to this as a student, but also as watching students do it, one of the first things that students do is they put their arms down. There's a default there to make things easier. Now the challenge with that is how we do anything is how we do everything. If we're always trying to make things easier off the yoga mat, we're not going to be able to experience mental, emotional, spiritual, physical growth. If you remember, one of the 6 human needs is growth and contribution. We have to feel like we're growing. And this is one of the reasons why, in my opinion, many feel like we're in an existential vacuum. Like there's just a sense that there's a lack of meaning out there, a lack of purpose. And for many, they feel that way. So a big part of this narrative is showing the students how what they're doing on the yoga mat and teaching them the principles and the values and the concepts and the distinctions and the strategies of what the practice of yoga has taught us, and how you can apply that off the yoga mat. You can find material for your narrative in your everyday life, in your conversations with the people in your life, in some of the movies that you might be watching. You can certainly find helpful information for your narrative in some of the things that you're reading. But the most significant source for our narration lies right in the very fabric of these 6 phases that we call the gratitude way. All of you are familiar with the vinyasa arc and the 6 phases that make up the gratitude way. The integration phase, the force of life, the body of work, which is the largest portion, the core and spinal toning, inversions and hip openers, and then of course finishing and shavasana. Now within each and every one of the names of these phases, you've got tons of information. For instance, what's the intention of the integration phase? Well, the intention is to integrate. What's the intention of the force of life? The intention of the force of life is to expand your internal breath. What's the intention of the body of work? Well, it's to work your entire body, but also to get grounded through your feet. The intention of the core and spinal toning, to work the core and your spine, to work with inversions and hips, and then to have some finishing poses to work out any of the wiggles and shavasana. Okay, great. We know that from an intellectual level. Now let's start to extract a little bit of information on how we can use it to narrate. In the integration phase, when a student comes into the class, they're disintegrated. So one of the things that we can do is what I've been taught: the heaven if you do, the hell if you don't. All right? The heaven if you do, the hell if you don't. In other words, if you remain disintegrated, what are the consequences? And this is a little exercise that I'd like you guys to do. If you can take out a pen and paper and jot this down. If one continues to be disintegrated, to feel like they're separate from the world outside of them, if they feel like they're very stressed out in their mind, or their mind is fragmented, or they're identified with their psyche, or if they're identified with just their emotions, or they're narcissistic and they're identified just with ego self. What is the hell about that? How does that work with relationships? How does being disintegrated help you to become a better parent, the most effective parent? How does being disintegrated help you professionally in meeting with clients, etc., etc.? And we can go through the hell with all of these. If you remember what the intention for the Force of Life is to expand your breath. Now think about the hell, meaning, what if you keep your breath shallow and short and uptight, as they call it? How is your energy when your breath is shallow? If you have to, exercise with your younger children, how does it feel when you can't do that? When your energy and your breath is uptight, it's difficult to feel excited about anything. I mean, when you really start to think about it, you can come up with 8, 10, 12 different hells, like reasons why you really don't want to keep your breath as tight and as constricted as possible. Now, the body of work. How does it feel when your body's a little overweight? Or how does it feel when your body is tight, or when you don't have balance? Or how does it feel when the knots in your hamstrings are so tight, or the inflammation that you get? Or, the extra bit of belly fat around your tummy? Or how does it feel when, the back of your neck is tight? These are all the hells if you don't. And then, of course, then you have core and spinal toning. Think about your stomach. How does it feel to, let's speak metaphorically here, or theoretically, like, what does it feel like when you don't have like your own backbone, or you have a weak stomach? Like, you hear people say things like, she's got a backbone like a jellyfish, or he's spineless. How does that feel when you don't feel like you can stand up for yourself, or you can show up as the best version of who you are? Another example would be literally physically. The number 2 reason why people visit a doctor's office is because of back pains. I'm a back pain survivor. It's the worst. You know how many people, it's debilitating when your back hurts. So you can go through the hell for the core and spinal toning. Then hip openers and inversions. So some of the phases have a little bit more narrative, some a little less. But if you think about your hips, you think about how important when your hips are really tight, or you can't run and you can't sit. You know how many people get hip replacements in this culture? And then, of course, you have the final, which is finishing in Shavasana. So obviously we know Shavasana means to sit with a corpse or to die, right? And think about it like if you're constantly identifying with things that are impermanent, your physical body, your emotions, your children, your material world. The reason why we as a culture suffer so much and suffer with fear so much is because we try to hold on to things that are going to go away. So it's like trying to straighten out the deck chairs on the Titanic, as one teacher put it. It's futile. So those are examples of the hell if you don't. Now let's talk about the heaven if you do. When you are integrated, when you do feel like your mind, your emotions, your body are whole, how does that make you feel? And rather than putting, the answers out there, I want you guys to jot it down. Like, jot it down when you feel integrated. How much more effective are you as a professional? How much more effective are you as a parent? How much more, inner strength do you have, and durability and sustainability and resources do you have? When your breath is full and expansive, and you've got energy that you can outlast your teenage kids, truly, not just because you're caffeinated, but true prana, true energy inside of your body, which comes from the force of life, which are the sun salutations. When your physical body at any stage of life is resilient, supple, flexible, strong, balanced, coordinated, how does that make you feel? The heaven if you do, the hell if you don't. And of course, then you have the core and spinal toning. I went over that before. How does it feel when your back, your spine is strong and you could do a beautiful back bend, and you feel all your endorphins that come from that, the emotions that get wrung out from that? Then, of course, you have the hips when you're able to go into half pigeon and really wring out emotions, stuck emotions. The heaven if you do, right? The heaven when you do allow those emotions out, how much more receptive you are to your spouse or your children or the people in your life. And then, of course, when you really understand the importance of dying before you die, how does that make you feel a little less attached and a little less clingy to things that are going to go by anyway. That's the whole spiritual idea, to die before you die. So you've got, within the 6 phases, the intention. You've got the hell if you don't, and the heaven if you do. So what I want you guys to do is I want you to go through each one of the phases, and I want you to write a couple things down. I want you to write heaven and hell. You can use whatever terminology you wish. But in the integration phase, you want to write, okay, when you're not integrated, how do you feel? And then when you are integrated, how do you feel? And I want you to go over your personal life. I want you to go over your professional life, and then I'd like you to go over your family life, because I think those 3 are different. The force of life, when your breath is expanded, when you feel like you have capacity to breathe. The hell and the heaven. Your physical body, everything that has to do with your physical body. Balance, coordination, flexibility, strength, coordination, cardiovascular strength and endurance, muscular strength and endurance, and body composition. Those are all the aspects, those are all the benefits that come from the body of work. The core and spinal toning, again, the heaven if you do. How does it feel when you have back pains? Go over this stuff in 3 different areas. See how it really unfolds for you. Now, of course, you might have a little bit more in one category than the next, which is fine. Inversions and hip openers, and then, of course, finishing in Shavasana. Now, once you get that material, what we can do is we can start to work together on how to craft a narrative and how to present it as you start to speak through the class.